Lieutenant Commander Tessa Vorn arrived fashionably late to the Supreme Chamber of the Galactic Bureaucratic Order of Allied Protocols, a name that sounded like a tax audit, and felt like one too. She strolled in, chewing what looked like a muffin, but was, in fact, a dense, protein-packed nutritional brick flavored like cardboard despair. Her entrance wasn't announced. She didn't salute. She didn't bow to the High Logician or the gelatinous assembly of 77 alien representatives, vibrating with procedural indignation. No, she just walked in, nodded at the nearest. Steaming translator orb like it owed her money and muttered, "Morning, I brought snacks." The chamber's oxygen filtration hiccuped as every delegate simultaneously re-evaluated their entire species' diplomatic strategy. Tessa stood calmly, still chewing, and casually dropped a holographic file onto the council dais. It flickered to life, displaying two human children, faces smudged with dirt but alive, inside a rather unlicensed alien containment unit labeled Educational Reorientation Sector. The Vulcar insignia sat proudly in the corner like a villain's autograph. A gasp ran through the chamber. Tessa just sipped her tea, which appeared from a self-heating cup on her belt, with the quiet menace of a weapon being unsheathed. "We'd like those back," she said pleasantly, her tone making it sound like she was asking for a borrowed casserole dish. The Vulcar ambassador scoffed through all four of his mouths. "This must be a bureaucratic oversight." Tessa nodded with exaggerated sympathy. "Sure. And my left boot accidentally wound up in your capital's fire suppression mainframe last night. Weird how oversights work." The council began to posture, wringing appendages and quoting Subclause 14G of the Interstellar Child Transport Neutrality Accord. Tessa just smiled wider and placed a single slip of Terran parchment on the central table. It read, in calligraphic ink, "Do not touch what we love." No signature, just the emblem of Earth's diplomatic containment force, two hands cradling. A star, backlit by ominous tea steam. The High Logician Flaxus Groob burbled anxiously in his containment tank, trying to both de-escalate and locate the emergency panic bell, which had been mysteriously replaced with a jam dispenser. "Surely, Lieutenant Vorn, you understand this chamber requires formal language, established grievances, and multi-cycle reviews. We'll open an inquiry." Tessa gently shook her head. "Already opened one. It ends in 72 hours, or less, if your fleet doesn't enjoy gravity malfunctions during breakfast." Her tone remained courteous, like a kindergarten teacher announcing nap time to a room full of convicts. Across the chamber, Councillor Fleck of the Tixari began twitching violently, having remembered Earth's last interstellar inquiry, which had involved silent shutdowns of starport systems and a temporary blackout of all entertainment transmissions, replaced, without explanation, by a 48-hour loop of Terran cooking shows narrated by passive-aggressive grandmothers. The Vulcar delegation laughed it off, bragging that their empire of Valadon feared no species who voluntarily wore socks indoors. Tessa didn't argue. She just tapped her wristband. A soft chime echoed. Half a dozen distant Valadon starbases went offline. Tessa didn't look at the holo feed. She didn't need to. Instead, she reached into her tactical pouch and pulled out a lemon. "Would anyone like some tea?" she asked. "It pairs well with accountability." That was the moment the room shifted. Not with noise, not with violence, just the slow, creeping realization that Earth hadn't come to beg. They'd come to document the moment history tripped over its own ego. As delegates fumbled to reframe the incident as diplomatic turbulence, Tessa returned to her seat, leaned back, and pulled out a small photo of the two children. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She just looked at it like a parent memorizing the face of a promise. The galaxy had forgotten what Earth was. Tessa Vorn was here to remind them, with tea, smiles, and the kind of silence that comes before. Storms rewrite maps. And as the council debated into the night, unaware that half their fleet had just rerouted itself into containment quarantine under the mistaken belief it had the flu. Earth's first message echoed across the stars. You thought we were harmless. You mistook our silence for absence. Now you get to meet the reason your protocols have teeth. By the time the second council session convened, 3 star systems had gone suspiciously quiet. 7 major shipping lanes had reported data outages, and 1 Validon general had filed a stress leave form citing existential dread triggered by Terran silence. Tessa Vaughn sat in the back of the chamber this time, legs casually propped on a glowing bench labeled for ethereal representatives only, sipping something from a black thermos that smelled faintly like citrus and emotional damage. Nobody dared ask what was inside. The High Logician was visibly sweating, no small feat for a species composed mostly of semi-translucent mucus, and babbled at length about diplomatic frameworks, fluidly evolving contexts, and perhaps a light refreshment break. Meanwhile, the Council's communications division was experiencing a low-grade nervous breakdown as messages from Validon territory trickled in. Entire city sectors with no power but fully functioning ambient music systems, planetary defense, protocols mysteriously rerouted to play lullabies in Terran dialects, and AI command units stuck in loops asking, "Have you hugged your compliance officer today?" Tessa, in her usual comforting deadpan, clicked a small device on her wrist and played a short hologram for the chamber. Footage of the abducted children, now safe, sitting cross-legged on a blanket with 2 human operatives disguised as plush giraffes teaching them chess. "They're fine now," Tessa said, twirling a pen that suspiciously resembled a retinal decryptor. "Earth would simply like to know how many of your planets enjoy mandatory meditation sessions with their military disabled." Counselor Fleck squeaked something about the need for calm negotiation and fainted mid-sentence, landing on his emergency snack pod. General Tharnox of Validon attempted bluster, rising in full ceremonial armor that shimmered with arrogance and poor decision-making. "You dare mock our sovereignty with bedtime tactics?" he roared, pounding the table. Tessa didn't even blink. "You dared kidnap children from a planet that engineered sarcasm as a national defense mechanism. Don't act surprised that your orbital comms are now narrating bedtime stories featuring subtle threats." Tharnox tried to counter but was cut off by the sound of every light in the chamber dimming in sync. Then came the hum, a low melodic tone, familiar to every human and baffling to the rest of the galaxy. It was Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, played in perfect harmony from every comm device across multiple planets. The room fell into stunned silence as a central display lit up to show a live feed of the Validon homeworld, its sky now darkened by what appeared to be Terran civilian ships, not military, but agricultural, educational, even culinary, parked in perfect formation above strategic facilities. No shots fired, no breaches, just presence, intentional, measured, and somehow more threatening than a fleet of war cruisers. Tessa smiled with soft menace. "They're just watching. You know how parents are." The High Logician gulped. "Surely this is an overreaction. Surely we can discuss proportional response." Tessa leaned forward slowly. "You took our children. Earth has responded proportionally. This is the polite phase." Even the air in the chamber seemed to grow heavier. Somewhere in the galaxy, another Validon ship rerouted itself to a safe orbit, reporting inexplicable system errors and an influx of Earth-sourced motivational messages. Please remember, kindness is not absence of consequence. It's a delay. The chamber grew quieter still. Bureaucrats who had once sneered at Earth's love of rules now flipped frantically through protocol binders, looking for ways to surrender without calling it that. Tessa checked her thermos, shook it, and frowned. Empty. "I'll give you another 12 hours, she said, standing and stretching. "You know, for the kids." With that, she walked out, humming the lullaby that now haunted the dreams of half the Validon Empire. The message was clear, and it echoed louder than any weapon ever could. Earth was watching, and Earth remembered. The 12th hour arrived with all the dignity of a collapsing filing cabinet. By then, the Empire of Valadon had officially entered the "oh no, we've made a terrible mistake" stage of interstellar regret, marked by panic-driven budget reallocations and the sudden resignation of their minister of arrogant diplomacy. Council delegates from across the galaxy scrambled to look composed, but most had already changed into less absorbent robes, anticipating more emotional fallout. High Logician Flaxus Groob, now visibly deflated and drinking what might have been a stress reduction algae smoothie, requested a motion to pause proceedings for mutual contemplative stillness. No one seconded it. Instead, they stared at the center of the chamber where the lights dimmed and a Terran courier drone, shaped bafflingly like a duck wearing aviator goggles, floated in carrying a datapad engraved with a single phrase. Operation Quiet Time has concluded. Kindly reboot your dignity. As the datapad was activated, the chamber's main display lit up again, but this time with a map, simple, clean, and utterly horrifying. Every Valadon-controlled star system now glowed red, not for war, not for invasion, but because they had been disabled. Transport hubs, economic circuits, energy regulators, all still physically intact, but functionally useless. Their command AIs had been given a gentle digital lobotomy and were now stuck in debug loops asking existential questions like, "What is protocol without purpose?" and "Why does my calendar say nap zone for the next 72 hours? The Valadon fleet tried to respond, only to find their ships reclassified in every galactic registry as recreational observation platforms. Their main battlecruiser was now scheduled to host a human-hosted yoga retreat. Meanwhile, across hundreds of planets, glowing screens displayed Earth's final message. "You didn't listen when we were calm. Now you'll remember us every time your lights flicker." In the middle of this chaos, Tessa Vorn casually returned to the chamber, sipping a drink through a reusable straw shaped like a DNA helix. She wasn't smiling. Not really. It was something else, a look perfected by human mothers across centuries. The smile that said, "I'm not angry, just disappointed. And you should be terrified of that." Councillor Fleck, having lost most of his vocabulary, attempted to beg for clarification, but only managed to squeak out, "Ergonomic suppression?" Tessa tilted her head sympathetically. "You'll get it eventually. Think of it as a full-system mindfulness exercise. Galactic enlightenment through enforced reboot." At that moment, every Valadon planetary broadcast was overridden with footage of the abducted children, now laughing, playing chess, and calmly feeding lunch to a very confused alien diplomat in a onesie. In the background, Earth's anthem played, remixed into lo-fi instrumental beats. Peace never sounded so unsettling. General Tharnox, stripped of military command, and currently trying to manually reboot a comms unit using a fork, barged into the chamber in a panic. "You cannot do this! You didn't even declare war!" he shouted, cheeks twitching beneath his polished scales. Tessa walked over, gently took the fork, and placed a cup of tea in his hand. "Exactly. We're not at war. We're at reminder." Then she leaned in close and whispered, "Imagine what we'd do if we were actually mad." The room fell into dead silence as her words hung in the air like a guillotine suspended by grammar. One by one, delegates from other systems began shifting their policy stances, rewriting their diplomatic protocols in real time, and casually asking how Earth took their tea. The GBOAP servers crashed briefly as 700 civilizations simultaneously tried to search Terran conflict avoidance etiquette. In orbit, 1,000 Terran ships began powering down, reabsorbing their quiet presence. Not a weapon fired, not a casualty reported. And yet, galactic power had shifted so hard it left emotional whiplash. The Empire of Valadon, once a blustering titan of galactic intimidation, was now a silent monument to what happened when you underestimated a planet that turned trauma into art and emotional damage into logistics. Earth had issued no ultimatums. It simply made sure that everything continued to function, except you. Tessa Vorn took one last look at the council chamber, flicked a switch on her thermos that said, "Steep mode, engage," and offered a single line before heading out. "Let us know when you're ready to behave like adults. We'll bring cookies next time." The doors slid closed behind her with the hiss of absolute authority, and the galaxy, shaken and rebooted, was left with nothing but silence, and a newfound fear of what Earth's polite response really meant. The final day came not with a bang, but with a galactic whimper so profound it could have been mistaken for an interstellar sigh of collective regret. The chamber, once buzzing with performative confidence and bureaucratic smugness, now sat in funereal silence as Lieutenant Commander Tessa Vorn returned, not in armor, not in tactical gear, but in a crisp, unassuming black suit, with a single Terran flag patch over the heart and a teacup resting calmly in her palm like a loaded sidearm. She didn't stride, she strolled. And somehow, that casual gait was the most intimidating thing to ever grace the G-Bop Supreme Assembly floor. Delegates watched her like she was a patient hurricane, still and lovely just before the roof disappeared. Flaxus Groob attempted a welcome, but his gelatinous form was shaking so violently, his speech was translated as "gurgle, panic, mercy, please." Tessa gave him a warm nod. "Much better tone than last time. You're improving." She placed a folder on the central dais. It read, Resolution 404, Terms of Decompression. Inside were reparations calculated to the microcredit, educational amnesty agreements for the abducted children's families, public apologies formatted for every galactic language. Yes, even the squeaky-clicky one used by the Flarn who communicate via explosive sound waves, and most importantly, a memorandum from Earth stating, without flourish, "This is your only chance to get it right. We won't teach this lesson twice." As the Council tried to wrap their trembling tentacles, pseudopods, and neurohorns around the sheer surgical precision of the document, Tessa stepped forward one last time. "You have not been punished. Not really. We didn't target your people, or your homes, or your stars. We targeted your certainty. The certainty that Earth would never push back. That silence meant weakness. That compliance meant we were tamed. You stole our children, and in return we simply helped you understand the rules you wrote." The screen behind her came alive with live footage of Valadon's capital. Peaceful now, tranquil even. Citizens were walking, talking, resuming life under the gentle hum of systems finally restored. But over every government building fluttered a new flag, not Earth's, but Valadon's original emblem, uncorrupted, beside a white flag with two Terran children hand in hand beneath a tea leaf. The implication was as loud as a detonation. Earth hadn't erased them. It had reminded them who they used to be before fear and power replaced purpose. Across the chamber, delegates wept, not from shame, but from the unbearable weight of clarity. Councillor Fleck tried to speak, failed, then simply nodded like a man who had just been handed the last piece of a puzzle he didn't realize was his own face. Even General Tharnox, now stripped of rank and dignity, sitting quietly in a seat, labeled spectator, previously intimidating, found no rebuttal. His claws twitched once, then stilled. Tessa took one last sip of her tea, sighed in satisfaction, and addressed the room with a final, unshakable truth. Earth is not a weapon. Earth is a memory. We don't start wars. We end the things that try to break us, and we do it politely, until politeness fails. She turned to leave, but paused at the threshold, as if recalling something minor but vital. If anyone touches another Terran child again, we will erase your stars, not your cities, not your fleets, your stories. The galaxy will forget you existed. Your culture will become a warning label on a jar of jam back home. With that, she exited, the doors hissing closed behind her like the last breath of a dying delusion. In the silence that followed, no one moved, no one spoke, no one even blinked. Because now, across every quadrant of known space, the truth was etched into memory like fire into stone. Earth didn't threaten, Earth didn't scream. Earth remembered. And sometimes remembrance was worse than revenge. From that day forward, every galactic protocol bore a new clause, quietly inserted but never questioned. Do not touch what they love. Because in the end, the most terrifying species in the galaxy wasn't the one with the biggest fleet. It was the one that brought tea to a war and won without spilling a drop.